Hello guys and gals, and welcome back to another episode of CREEPYPASTAS. Yes, a series where we sit back and relax and enjoy some internet spooky stories. This time we have one not involving gaming, as again you can tell by the title, but this is CREEPYPASTA of the month for January 2015. And as a mindfuck pasta, it's called the April 12th Mind Story. What happens on April the 12th? Well, sit back, relax, and enjoy the April 12th Mind Story. I always considered myself very logical. I never put myself in uncomfortable situations, nor do I let emotions get the best of me. It wasn't until today where I felt the stable structure of my mind shift a bit. It was all because of her. I'm sure of it. I only saw her for a brief moment in the crowded hallway of my school, but what I did see was enough to make my heart skip a beat. She was of average height, standing at what appeared to be about 5 feet 4 inches, and with each step she took, the curls in her short brown hair would bounce ever so slightly, as if they were in a Renaissance dance. The purple frame of her glasses reflected the light of the fluorescent bulbs in the ceilings, giving off a faint yet distinctive glow. Behind the glasses were eyes of the softest shade of brown that could warm the heart of the coldest and most calculative of men. The bright floral pattern of her dress stood out from the crowd of bland and unoriginal styles, beckoning my eyes to fall upon the goddess-like figure of the tight fabric was covering. Her head turned in my direction, and she flashed on a welcoming smile, showing off her perfectly white teeth. In the same amount of time I saw her, she disappeared from my line of sight. I looked behind me to see if I could find her again, but she was gone, probably somehow blending in with the crowd. I haven't been able to think of anyone or anything since, which explains this journal entry. It's amazing to think that it took this girl only 1 second to destroy the mental barriers to set up to keep everyone out. She was able to enter my mind with ease and infect the temptation-free psyche of my brain. I must know more about this girl. A person with that much of an effect on me must surely be worth my time. Over the course of the last few school days, I've been able to learn more about the girl from a while ago. Her name is Helena. And by how others treated her while we were talking, it didn't seem like she has any friends. Other students would point in her direction and would laugh while others gave us weird looks. Helena told me this was because she had recently moved into town and was the new student of our school. I don't have friends because I find that they only get in the way of my studies. However, Helena seemed different. She and I are a lot alike, so I decided to take her under my wing. At lunch, I brought her to the spot I normally go, a deserted stairwell in the south wing of the school. We sat down and talked about whatever Helena wanted. I tried to ask about where she used to live, but she told me that she was uncomfortable with sharing that. All she said was that her old neighborhood was gloomy with no fun to be had. She has never been in a relationship either, as it would only get in the way of her musical hobbies. That got my attention. She plays the electrical bass, and has even written a few songs of her own. What I found interesting was that she'd done something I'd always been meaning to do. I told her about my interest in music and playing it one day myself, and she smiled, saying that she'd help me make that dream a reality someday. She then gathered her stuff to get a head start on getting to class. As I got up as well to walk her there, she said she could do it on her own, and left after kissing me on the cheek. As she left, I rubbed the cheek she kissed. My face began to blush, and a smile slowly grew on my face. This was the first time in my life that I'd felt like that before. My heart still flutters as I merely write about her, and for once, I can't wait to see someone at school tomorrow. I'm excited to see Helena again. Helena and I have hung out during lunch for the past week. We talked about her music and her classes, and that's about it. She seemed very interested in my views of humanity, as they were similar to her own. Nothing especially exciting happened today other than her kissing me on the cheek again, and my attraction to her growing every day. I can feel it. Why is it now that my emotions are suddenly in control of my thoughts? I even find it hard to do my homework now. I can be working on a graphing problem for math and suddenly Helena's smile will just appear in my mind. I could be reading 1984 in his example, and the narrator's voice will become that of Helena's. As I've stated, I've never felt this way before nor experienced such emotions. Is it normal? Perhaps it is, though I'm not too sure if I enjoyed these feelings that come with liking someone. I told my family about Helena tonight during dinner, as my mother was wondering why I would stare into space frequently. She's happy that I finally found a girl that made me feel happy, as she put it. Even my dad, who is normally against dating at my age, was pleased to hear that someone at school was able to break down my mental walls. I smiled as I'd gotten my parents' full approval on a girl, though I never thought there'd be such a time. With my parents' blessing, I could finally execute my master plan. asking Helena to be my girlfriend. I wanted to do so yesterday, but I couldn't bring it up myself. My hands began to sweat and I couldn't speak. Maybe second time's a charm? Fingers crossed it'll go well. Lately, I haven't been able to write into my journal because I've been busy spending time with someone. My girlfriend, Helena. I asked her out on the 26th, and she accepted my offer to start a relationship by kissing me on the lips with a passion I've never experienced in my life. The past 10 days have opened my eyes to a world I've never seen or heard of, a world of purity and wonder. My logical ways of thinking have made way for my emotions to take charge. Everyone still gives me odd looks from time to time, probably because I'm dating the new girl on the block. This weekend, I'm bringing Helena over to meet my parents. She's been dying to meet them since we started dating. I'm curious to find out how that's going to go. She's a fantastic girl, so I see there being no problems. Helena arrived in my house shortly after 4 today. I led her into the house and brought her into the kitchen where my parents were. My father was reading the newspaper while my mom was doing work on the family laptop. I attempted to introduce Helena to my parents, but all they did was look at us for a brief moment and go back to what they were previously doing. I asked my parents to at least greet our guest, but they simply ignored me. Unfortunately, this always happens when I have friends over. When I was a little kid, I would invite some friends over, and my parents ignored us for a while, until they finally decided to talk to the guest I brought over. I turned my back on my parents to bring Helena to my room, and so my mother, would begin to talk to us. "Oh, so you're Helena," she said in an energetic tone of voice. "Our son has said so much about you. He's a keeper, I'll tell you that much. Just make sure he washes his face every day. He doesn't do that too often." I asked my mom to stop, and Helena began to laugh to herself. My mother looked at my father, who then put down his newspaper to talk to Helena for a little. "So, how much did Martin pay you to come over?" My dad always makes jokes like that whenever I bring friends over. I rolled my eyes as Helena laughed more. She said that she came of her own free will and wanted to meet him. "Pardon me," my dad replied. "She said she's very glad to meet you, Dad," I said to him. "Oh, my apologies. My hearing isn't as good as it used to be." After that, I brought Helena to my room, where we got the chance to talk to each other alone. We had a good conversation despite the fact that we could clearly hear my parents talking to one another from the kitchen. Sadly, they weren't saying very positive things. I hate doing that, Maria. Why do I have to pretend to enjoy talking to Martin's friends? Angel, you have to get used to it. He really seems to care about this one. For his sake, Maria, let's just hope it's just a phase. I don't know if I can take much more of this. After having Helena over at dinner for a few times, my parents still insisted on continuing their dumb little joke. Helena didn't seem to mind, but I was very annoyed. However, today was different. When I got home, my parents were sitting in the kitchen waiting for me. They asked me to sit down so they could talk to me about something rather important. My mother told me that they're only saying this because they care about me and want what's best for me. Which is the same line she always uses before talking about something serious such as my antisocial behavior or the fact that they thought I was a drug addict in the 10th grade. My father cut her off, saying that they wanted me to break things off with Helena. I stood up in disbelief. How dare they say I had things with Helena? My mother told me to sit down so they could explain themselves. Reluctantly, I followed her orders. My dad told me that they didn't want me to be dating such a bad influence. He went on to explain the fact that they noticed odd habits that have started to develop in me. He told me that since Helena and I began to see each other, I've been starting to talk to myself in a mumbled tone from time to time. The more disturbing part is that the mumblings are always about Helena. They think that she's doing something to me, possibly having me ingest drugs without my knowing and turning me into a nervous wreck. I told them that Helena would never do such a thing, and that we love each other. My mother told me that she understands where I was coming from, but she continued to say that this kind of relationship isn't healthy for me. I stood up and told my parents the way I saw it. I'm in a relationship with the girls in my dream, and nothing they could say would change it. I stormed off to my room and have been here since. To hell with them, for all I care. I'm always sick of following their orders and doing whatever I can to please them. That's my turn to do something that makes me happy. I'm beginning to notice a few things that have been happening to me recently. Not only do my hands twitch occasionally, but I feel like I'm losing myself somehow. I have a rough time finding the right words to use every so often. It's never happened before, so it's slightly alarming to me. However, I'm sure it's nothing too serious. I probably just need a good night's sleep. I doubt I'll have one, though. I haven't gotten too many good rests lately. It's been about a month or two since I fully feel rested in the morning. What's weird is that I've always felt rested every morning thanks to a strict sleeping schedule I created, and it worked like a charm. Something just feels off about this whole thing, and I don't like it. To my parents' dismay, I'm still with Helena. However, they seem to have gotten more accepting of the concept of our love. I'll take whatever straws I can grab at this point, honestly. Today, they even offered to drive me to Helena's for the day. Apparently, my mother talked to Helena's parents, and they wanted to see me today. I smiled faintly. Pleased that my parents are over the fact that Helena could possibly be a bad influence, they dropped me off in front of a lovely little home in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. The house is white with dark blue borders around the doors and window frames. It was almost painful to look at. There's a bright white shade of the door, and almost this house just blinds me. My eyes readjusted so I could look at the house and see all the details. It was a cozy 2-story house with enough space to hold 4 family members. Perhaps Helena had siblings she never told me about. I walked up to the house and knocked on the door, and a few moments later an older man answered the door. He appeared to be in his mid-50s, his hair graying out and his face sporting a fatherly mustache. He wore a plaid button-up shirt that was tucked into his jeans. He looked at me and gave me a friendly smile. "Ah, you must be Martin Watson. It's a pleasure to meet you, son," he said as he shook my hand violently. He let me into the house, telling me that Helena was in her room, which was the last door to the right down in the hallway. I was on my way to her room when something came out of the bathroom and wrapped their arms around me, shouting, "Boo!" I jumped and was scared until I realized my assailant was none other than Helena. She looked at me while laughing, saying that I'm such a scaredy cat. I turned around and began to play fight with her, and we came to a truce with a tender kiss. Nothing truly important happened until we sat down and ate dinner. 4 plates were set out on the round wooden table, one of Helena's father, one for her mom, and one for her, and one for me. They served a make-it-yourself burrito dinner because Helena's a vegetarian, so they had a separate bowl for the meat. That explained why she didn't eat much when she would come over for dinner at my house. Her mother had long curly hair, which is where I assume Helena got hers from. Some of her black bangs covered her large eyebrows, which distracted from the slight wrinkles forming on her face. She's slightly shorter than me, but she had a big enough voice to compensate for that. She sat across from me, and Helena's father was to my left. It was quiet until I began a conversation. "So," I asked both of Helena's parents, "where do you two work?" "I work as a neuroscientist," the father replied. Studying how the brain works and why we do the things we do." "I'm a psychiatrist," Helena's mother said as soon as her husband was finished. "I work with people who have mental issues such as anxiety and depression." I nodded politely and took a bite out of my burrito. Those were some intense jobs for seemingly ordinary people. I began to tell them about myself, my commitment to school, among other things, such as my family. Helena's mother asked me to talk about my relationship with her daughter. It was a bit taken off guard. Did Helena really not talk to them about me? I mean, that can't be it, since her father knew exactly who I was when he answered the door. Shaking the thought away, I began to explain to her my relationship with Helena. "It's wonderful. To be honest, she's the reason I was able to tear down my mental walls. She's a great listener. She cares a lot for me, and she accepts me for who I really am." I took Helena's hand in mine. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." Her mother and father looked at each other, then turned to me and smiled. "Well," her mother said, "I'm glad you two are very happy." My parents have been asking about Helena and how I've been. I keep telling them that we're doing great, but every time I do, they just seem a little disappointed. Maybe it's just my mind messing with me. They're my parents, and they want to see me enjoy myself. It would make no sense for them to be disappointed by my girlfriend. I mean, I are doing well. It must be my mind playing tricks on me. Helena's parents invited us down, for dinner. Or me for dinner, at least. It was very nice of them, that's for sure. And while eating, they asked me how Helena and I met. I told them that we first saw each other in the halls on April 12th, which, Helena said, happened to be her birthday. We only exchanged glances, though, I told them. Her father seemed very interested, and her mother smiled sweetly and nodded. I took Helena out on a date night today. I brought her to the restaurant my parents always took me to when I was a kid. She seemed to enjoy it a lot. We shared a cheese pizza, and it was delicious. She also looked amazing today, wearing the same dress she wore on the first day I saw her. It was a wonderful night, and I'm glad I got to spend it with a wonderful girl. My mother heard me talking to Helena today while she was over to see me for a while. She walked into my room and saw the two of us sitting on my bed, talking about whatever was on our minds. She only looked at us for a few moments before bursting into tears and running out of my room. And after Helena left, my father asked me into the kitchen. He told me that I had to end things with Helena as soon as possible, since it's been upsetting him and my mother a lot more than usual lately. I looked him in the eyes and said it wasn't going to happen anytime soon. He demanded I do it, but I retaliated by questioning why he was asking me to do it. "You want to know? I'll tell you why. It's because..." And then he stopped in mid-sentence and sat down in his chair silently. He said he couldn't say it and told me to go to my room. What was it all about? Why did he stop himself? It doesn't make any sense. A lot of things haven't been adding up lately. Today was our first day back to school. I met with all my new teachers, and I met up with Helena in the halls. We were talking about our new classes. when other students began to mock us. They weren't even hiding the fact that they were. They pointed and laughed at us. After a whole lunch hour of constant teasing, I finally had enough. I stood up and smacked the kid, leading the taunting across the face with my fist. Knocking him to the ground, everyone looked at us in shock and began to yell at the student I just hit. "How dare you make fun of us like that? Grow up and leave us alone." I grabbed Helena's wrist and stormed out of the cafeteria, where we were having lunch, and when I got home from school, my parents demanded to know why they got an email explaining that I got suspended from school for a week. I told them it was because people were making fun of Helena and I during lunch, and that I, struck the kid leading it all. I went to my room and slammed the door. I'd rather stay home anyways than go to school again. I'm beginning to get very concerned about Helena. Lately, her mood has been shifting constantly. One day she's her normal self, the next she's quite sad, and the day after she's very upbeat. I don't know. She's never had these mood swings before, so why is it happening all of a sudden? She didn't begin to show odd behavior until the day I met her family. Perhaps that has something to do with it. Do her parents not like me or something? Whatever the case may be, I want Helena to be happy, and I'll do whatever it takes just to do that. I went over to Helena's house and was surprised today. She seemed much happier, but maybe it was the fact that I came over without her knowing. I gave her 6 roses to represent the amount of months we've been together. She put them on her desk and hugged me tight. She then released herself from my grasp and ran down the hallway, giggling to herself. I followed her around the house and eventually made it to her father's office downstairs. I don't know where Helena went off, and I thought she may have hid herself somewhere in there. I began to look for her. There weren't many places to hide, but I checked each spot and I couldn't find Helena. However, I did notice multiple sheets of paper on father's desk. Most of them were irrelevant, like family reminders and grocery lists. What interested me was the notepad next to the keyboard for the computer. I picked it up and flipped through the pages. It appeared to be filled with notes concerning something for his work, and I began to read some of them. July 9, 2013. The subject appears to be in bad condition. It should have been brought to our attention sooner. August 16, 2013. The subject's symptoms are getting worse. I hope it doesn't progress, otherwise it could lead to something very serious. August 29, 2013. We've been conducting some interactive experiments rather than observing. We won't get anything done by standing around and watching. We need to get more involved with the subject, otherwise our whole cause will be wasted. September 5, 2013. Our subject is getting violent. We managed to calm it down, but we fear it will retaliate again if we don't carefully manage it. September 13, 2013. Funding for our research is gradually decreasing. The ones who asked to start this project aren't seeing results fast enough and are growing impatient. If they don't get what they want soon, I fear our research will have to end. We need to get results as soon as possible. I would have read more, but I heard Helena's father walking down the hallway. Put the notepad down, ran out of the office as fast as I could. Fortunately, he didn't see me. I saw Helena waiting for me on the top of the stairs. She smiled and extended her arms towards me, pulling me in close for a hug. Even though I wanted to, I didn't tell her about what I saw in her father's office. I didn't want to worry her. More strange things have been happening to me. I've become more anxious and jittery. Something that's never happened to me before. Not only that, but my parents have noticed me sleepwalk and heard me have nightmares from their room. The worst part of all this is that those nightmares and sleepwalking incidents have all been about the same thing. Helena. I haven't told them that detail, though, as it'll only make them want me to end things with her sooner. I approached my parents today and told them about my night terrors. I thought it was time they knew what the dreams were about. They seemed to be worried and understanding. They asked if they could help in any way, and I told them that they could do. I want you to tell me why being with Helena is a bad idea. That might help my mind rest. The two of them looked at each other and nodded slightly. My mother told me the same excuse as before, that she was a bad influence on me. Not that again. I slammed my hands against the table. I need to know. Tell me. My father grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me, shouting at me that they can't tell me, as there are personal reasons that they can't share. Frustrated, I stormed into my room and slammed the door. Helena's father is becoming more and more stressed lately. When asked about what's wrong, he says that it's nothing. He doesn't know that I'm aware of the reason he's become upset. The lack of finance or whatever he's doing at work, I think. I'm keeping my mouth shut, however. I don't want to upset anyone by letting that information slip out. Besides, Helena seems to have enough to worry about, with her mood swings and such. I took Helena on a surprise date. With all the crazy things going on lately, we needed to get away and just spend time together. Packed my backpack with dinner and a blanket so we could have a picnic in the park and go stargazing. Long story short, it was an amazing night. though I don't think any of those stars could compare to the shine in Helena's eyes. Helena came over unexpectedly today. She showed up and wished me a Merry Christmas, and even though there wasn't any mistletoe, she brought me in close for a kiss. She didn't bring a present, and she felt bad for not being able to give one to me. I told her she didn't have to get me one, since being with her is a gift all on its own. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and walked home. I was about to invite her in, but I guess she had other things to do with her family today. After all, it is Christmas. I do appreciate her coming to visit, though. It really made my day even better. I went over to Helena's house today. She said she needed some comforting because she felt terrible, so I made her tea and cuddled with her on the bed. She curled up close to me, and we sat in silence for a good 10 minutes or so until she finally said something softly. "I'm scared, Martin." I looked at her with great concern. I held her tighter and asked why she's frightened. "I never told you this, but there are these bad people, and they've been doing these terrible things to me." I sat up in horror. Someone was traumatizing her? That would explain the mood swings she's been having. Those must have been a result of her being tortured by these people. If that's the case, then those entries in her father's journal could be about her. She continued to talk. "You see, I never told you this because I don't want you to worry. These people, Martin, they're trying to get rid of me." "What? No, it can't be. Helena, I gotta do something. I need to show you something right now." I got off the bed and bring Helena to her father's office, but she grabbed a hold of me from behind before I could leave the room. "I would watch my step if I were you." She came in closer to my ear and to whisper something. "They're watching us." I felt a chill run down my spine. They were watching us? How long were they there? Who are they? Where are they? Every room in this house has been bugged with microphones and cameras. They see everything we do and hear everything we say. They were set up a few days ago before you first came over. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to be scared. Please forgive me, but I had to keep this secret from you, for your own good. I felt myself begin to choke up. Why didn't Helena tell me this before? Was there more information she's hiding from me? I fell to my knees and did something I haven't done in years. I cried. Helena knelt down and held me, telling me everything would be okay. I didn't believe her, but I guess I have to for now. I've been getting more and more paranoid lately. Regardless if I'm in Helena's house or not, I constantly look behind me when walking down the street and get anxious when strangers get close to me. It's harder for me to sleep at night because I fear someone is staring at me, watching every move. It's driving me crazy. I need answers, and I need them now. Helena's father is getting less stressed. However, he's getting more worried. At the dinner table, he had to leave because he didn't feel well. His work must be catching up to him, I guess. I waited until after dinner to go to his office to see what's going on. Sure enough, I found more information in his journal. "Our suppliers are getting anxious. They say we aren't doing our job well enough. To hell with them, I say. They can do their own damn experiments and see what's at stake for themselves." October 12, 2013. I'm worried that someone has been going through my notes. They seem to be moved somehow when I went to check on something in the house. If someone else knows about what we're doing, this could mean the end for our research. I began to look around me. The entry must have been made the day I found this notepad. I didn't know what I was doing here. I had to keep reading and see if I could find anything else. December 21, 2013. Our subject seems to be warming up to us more. This is excellent. It could help us in the long run. January 2nd, 2014. It appears that the subject is still in his own little world. The whole time we've been trying to make it snap out of it yet, and it doesn't listen. It seems we've gone in a circle and are back at the beginning. January 24, 2014. The subject is getting fearful. It seems to be getting more self-aware of its situation and is beginning to isolate itself from us. We need to gain his trust again somehow. If that doesn't work, we'll have to resort to more drastic measures. I couldn't believe it. Helena's father's doing some kind of sick experiments. That's completely classified to anyone else. I feel bad for whatever the subject is. Its life may be at risk just so Helena's father can keep a fucking job. I've been thinking about the last few note entries I've read from that notepad. Along with Helena, what she said to me about a month ago. When I can't sleep, it's all I think about in a struggle to piece just anything together. Thinking about the dates that the journal entries were made, along with the days I found information for myself and the things Helena told me, then that should indicate no. That can't be right. There must have been some sort of meaning. Wait, could Helena be the subject? The dates seem to add up, but there's no evidence that it's her. Regardless, maybe I should talk to Helena about it? She might have more answers than me. I told Helena everything I knew about the cameras, her father, and the experiment. She simply laughed and seemed amused. She told me that there's no way her father is behind the plot to get rid of her, as that would be ridiculous. I need to show her all the things I found in her father's office, but her father has been staying at home for the past while instead of going to work, and there's no way I can get to his office without the possibility of getting caught by him. So I need to wait for now and gather more evidence. I shook it off and pretended like I was telling her a joke. February 15, 2014. I got the flu yesterday, but the symptoms hit me hard this morning. Both my parents had to go to work today, which meant I was home alone to take care of myself. It was bad enough I was sick, but now I had to make sure I didn't get in even worse conditions. What a big task that seemed to be. It was around lunchtime when I heard knocking at the door. I gathered enough energy to answer it and saw Helena smiling wide on my doorsteps. My spirits were lifted and I felt a little bit better. "Since you live so close to school," she said with her usual joyful tone of voice, I may as well come by and see how you're feeling. I smiled faintly at her, and she asked me to sit down so she could make me some lunch. I sat on the couch patiently, and about 7 minutes later a grilled cheese sandwich was placed in front of me. Bread was burnt a bit, so I tried scraping some off. "Dear, hopefully you won't mind." I don't mind at all, since the top of the bread was a big heart carved into this burnt spot. I smiled and told her she did a great job. I began to eat my lunch as Helena sat next to me and cuddled close until it was time for her to leave. I went to school today and I didn't see Helena at all. Usually we meet up so we can have lunch together, but she wasn't at our usual spot when I went to check. Hopefully you didn't catch the same illness I did, or even worse, maybe she was the subject of something terrible happened to her. I sure hope not, but I better not think like that, otherwise I'll worry too much and begin feeling even more unstable than I do now. After being absent at school for about a week or so, I finally saw Helena today after school. It was like my heart leaped out of my chest when I found her. I ran and gave her the biggest hug I ever gave anyone in my life. She giggled and said that she only went away on a family vacation for a week. She didn't understand how much I missed her. I don't think she ever will. I love her so much, and the last thing I want is for her to just go away. I got invited to dinner by Helena. I joyfully accepted, and we had a fantastic dinner at her house. After the meal, I snuck my way downstairs to her father's office to see if I could find more information about his experiment. However, he was already down there talking on the phone with someone. I hid behind a corner and eavesdropped on the conversation. "I know it's taken longer than expected, but it's a serious case." "Yeah, I'm aware how long it's been going on for. Listen to me, okay? If the subject learns about what's going on too quickly..." No, I'm not going to stop saying subject. It's the appropriate term. Regardless, if it learns all the information at once, that's going to cripple its psyche. And in turn... I understand. Okay, we'll discuss the plan of attack soon. Talk to you then. Good day. He hung up the phone and I hurried my way up the stairs. Who was he talking to? Whoever it was, it could have something to do with the wiretaps in the house. I must learn more. March 24, 2014. Elena's been acting very strange. I'll be talking to her and sometimes she won't even reply. She'll look at me with a glazed look in her eye, standing there without moving a muscle. This is happening very frequently and I'm getting a bad feeling about it. Perhaps she really is the subject her father has been talking about. Maybe this odd behavior coincides with the experiments he's doing. Only one way to find out, I guess. April 2nd, 2014. Helena asked me if I wanted to stay the night at her house. My parents allowed it, and I got my things ready to go to her house. After a usual dinner and some cuddling in her room, we got ready for bed and Helena fell asleep next to me, her arm resting over my chest. I could only lay there. I couldn't sleep knowing that someone was watching us. Ever since Helena told me that there were cameras everywhere, I've been weary of what I do everywhere I go. Her house, especially, looking to see if Helena was still asleep. I snuck my way from her room downstairs, where her father's office is. I opened the door silently and noticed that the computer was on its screensaver and the lights were on. He must have gone to the bathroom. I thought to myself, looking around. I couldn't find his notebook. I began to search frantically for it, as he may have put it in a hiding spot. While searching, my arm nudged the mouse of the computer just enough for it to boot up. I looked at the monitor in horror. On the screen were multiple different video feeds of what seemed like the inside of a house. I didn't think much of it until I saw the disturbing truth of the matter. One of the feeds showed Helena sleeping peacefully in her bed. As I looked at the feed, my mind began making conclusions by itself. There's no way she could be the test subject, right? She even said herself that her father could never do terrible things to her. Or could he? I didn't have much time to react as I heard a toilet flush from down the hall. I ran out of there quickly and returned to Helena's room, to make it look like nothing ever happened. I made it look like I was sleeping, even though I couldn't, knowing that a twisted man was watching his own daughter sleep at night. April 7, 2014. I began to think of a way I could tell Helena everything about her father, and have her believe me. Unfortunately, I can't go up to her saying, "Your father watches you sleep at night," without looking like a complete lunatic. Even with this in my mind, I have to set it aside for now, as it's Helena's birthday soon. In 5 days, in fact. I want to give her the best day ever. I'll have to let her... I have to tell her after April 12th. That way my assumptions are kept away from her long enough for her to, I guess, enjoy her day. April 10, 2014. As an early birthday present, I brought Helena to where our first date was. We ordered the same thing, a cheese pizza, and we had an amazing time. She looked absolutely beautiful, taking my attention away from the world and leading my eyes to meet with hers. She smiled sweetly and began to speak. "It's very sweet of you, Martin," she said with her loving voice. The sound of it makes my heart melt. "Hey, it's the least I could do," I replied. "I mean, you managed to spend almost a year with me after all, right?" She laughed at my remark as she put her hand in mine and held it tightly. "In all seriousness, though," I continued, "you do deserve it. You're the best girl I know, and I couldn't ask for anyone better than you, Helena." She smiled and blushed, making her face glow a bright shade of red. It was adorable. Heck, everything about her is adorable. "No other guy would have ever done this for me, and it's so great that you did," Helena said softly. "I've had an amazing time with you tonight, and in our relationship as a whole. I love you so much, Martin." My eyes began to mist over as I used a napkin to clear my vision. I can't believe I almost spent a year with this wonderful girl. I love her with all my heart and soul, and in 2 days, I'll get a chance to show her just how much she means to me. April 12th, 2014. I made my way to Helena's house at noon. Became very nervous as I didn't want to mess up her special day. My parents went to work in the morning, so I had to take a bus to her home. When I finally made it there, I put her present under my arm and knocked on the door. What caught me off guard was that the door was already unlocked and slightly open, so when I knocked on it, it opened all the way. Cautiously I entered the house and called out to see if anyone was at home, and if everyone was okay, just in case there was a robbery or something. I heard Helena's father call back, saying that everyone was in the kitchen. I quickly took off my shoes and ran up the stairs, and when I entered the kitchen I saw some people I wasn't expecting. Sitting at the dinner table were Helena's father and mother, but across from them were my parents. I thought they were at work, but perhaps they wanted to surprise me by coming out to celebrate Helena's birthday. I greeted everyone and asked where the birthday girl was. "Martin," her mother said softly, "about Helena." My body tensed up and I became very worried. What happened to her? My father asked me to take a seat at the head of the table. In shaky movements, I pulled out the chair and sat down, anticipating terrible news. "There's something you need to know, Martin." Helena's father began to speak with a strong voice. "You were brought here for a specific reason. It was so we could watch your interactions with Helena. We had to keep it a secret as to not startle you, and..." "What are you talking about, old man?" I lashed out. "You mean this whole place was just a fucking cell for Helena? Just what the fuck's going on here?" "Martin, calm down," my mother said sweetly. "You need to settle down so we can tell you." "Tell me what, Mom? That Helena's just an experiment? That her family only saw her as a test subject? Mom, don't you know he's doing harmful research that's funded illegally?" "We were the ones who funded his research," my father said sternly, lowering his head to stare at the ground. "It was for your own good." My eyes began to tear up as I felt all the information hit me at once. My own parents funded the research that harmed my sweet Helena. The thought of my parents and Helena's family teaming up to hurt her was unbearable. I started to cry, tears rolling down my face, as I tried my best to communicate. You're the ones who gave him the money to hurt Helena?" I could barely form a sentence without choking up, each word becoming a struggle as my throat tightened. I could no longer see, as my eyes were clouded by the tears forming in my eyes. "There was a specific reason for it, Martin," Helena's mother replied. "She knew too? Was I the only one unaware of this plot?" I began trying to pull myself together and listen to what these people have done to Helena. "We had to make sure you come visit this experimenting home. It was the only way we could get sufficient data to work with. These experiments could help many others suffering from the same thing. Martin, Helena had to go, to make sure you and others will be safe." Suffering from the same thing? Helena never told me about anything like that. No wonder she's always so happy. It must have been to mask the fact that she was a goner from the beginning. What she said to me 2 days ago, that must have been a final goodbye. I felt myself tearing up more and more, and an incredible pain formed in my chest. It felt like my heart was torn out from my body, leaving nothing but an empty hole where it once was, where Helena once resided. What? I began to form another painful sentence as my throat dried up. What was she suffering from? Her father looked at everyone and they all nodded. He then grabbed a portfolio from the bookshelf behind him, which held cookbooks and recyclable newspaper. This here contains all the data taken from our research. I think this will do a better job explaining the whole story rather than hearing it from us. Take a look, Martin. I placed it in front of me and I wiped my eyes from the shirt sleeve. Opening the portfolio, whatever was left in my heart sank as the truth about my dear Helena was finally revealed to me. Subject name, Martin Stanley Watson. Date of arrival, July 6, 2013. Diagnosis, schizophrenia. Symptoms, reduced social interaction, lack of emotional expression. Hallucinations of objects and people. Most recurring hallucination is of a young girl. The subject was named Helena. And that was quite the creepypasta. It seems the best ones we've done are kind of the non-gaming ones, and this one is well deserving of creepypasta of the month. Like Zorax, which was one of the best mindfuck pastas we've done, we've got small revelations that led to finding out that this girl that we were in love with all this time was just an hallucination at the end of the day. Now, this was somewhat noticed when we see the parents arguing and seemingly having a fake talking to Martin's beloved, and you can piece together with the notes that were dated, properly to the dates of the journal entries, that this is focusing on the subject of mental disorder, schizophrenia to be more specific. This has been quite the story, and it culminates so well in the end, with the revelation of the document being given to Martin. Now, it was very lengthy, but was it worth it? Yeah, it was. It's stick to its build-up and work from there. And yeah, it had its moments where I feel it deviated a little bit and focused on this relationship in a way that wasn't as meaningful as whenever we saw the relationship being mentioned. But even then it worked because it just, it wasn't too long and it just threw you right back into the tale. Now, it's creepy in the sense that halfway in, you look at the notes and even when Helena starts giving revelations out that people are watching you, it really does creep you out, because at any moment this could become the sequel to Morbus.avi, which is brilliant in a way, but here you always had the sense of unease, this paranoia that Martin also had, so you were sharing with the character, and, you were more worried for Martin. It's fortunate that, he wasn't sent to some facility that, he would be tortured at or something, but it was quite somber to actually see someone get that kind of revelation happen to them. In the end, that was that was quite the ending, and this is quite the story, and I'm glad they used all the source elements to their utmost degree. Anyone can bring things like schizophrenia into a story, but to make you feel like you're experiencing it, or something of the sort, in a fashion like this is definitely something to be noticed and proud of. In the end, what would you rate it, and what would you change to make it better? This has been another episode of Creepypastas, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Muda Harand. I'm out.